So my name's Mark VanGessel. I'm the extension weed specialist here. I do a variety of different projects that kind of fall into three main categories. One, I do a lot of product testing, looking at products that are commercially available or those that will soon be available, and compare them side by side for efficacy and crop safety. Like the corn behind you is a series of about 4 or 5 different trials. That's exactly what we're looking at. We've got harness versus harness extra versus the bicep, atrazine plus prowl. Just the whole gamut of products that are out there to help inform our recommendations and help to inform the publications that we put out, our weed management manuals, to look for consistency over years. And so you can see those are extremely weedy for a lot of them. There are some very good plots out there, and they really stand out. But you're all looking this way at another trial that we've got, and I did that purposely just to show you that I do sometimes get good weed control in my plots. Okay, and they don't always look like that. So what I've got behind me in conjunction with Dylan's project is looking at cover crops for weed suppression in full season no-till soybeans. We've done a lot of work with cover crops for weed suppression over the years. We see consistent benefits to it, while it may not be absolute weed control from the cover crops are reducing the number of weeds that emerge, and it's slowing down their growth, which gives us a wider application window to get our post-emergent sprays made. The benefit of and the contribution that the cover crop is going to have depends on a number of factors, and a big one is the age of the cover crop. If we're terminating it late March, early April, it still maybe even hasn't reached that boot stage. It's still a lot of vegetative material. Once we spray it, it pretty much dries up and does not provide much in terms of weed suppression. If we delay that, the longer we delay it, the more lignin that we get in the tissue, the more benefits we see in terms of weed control. And there's been a move. I shouldn't say a move, but there's been interest in the last few years about planting your cover crops planting your soybeans into a cover crop that's still green, and then killing your cover crop after the soybeans are planted. And most of the time that I hear people talk about it, most of our experience with that is we're letting that cover crop get to the heading stage, planting, and then killing that cover crop. But we wanted to look at what happens if we plant green earlier while that cover crop is still in a vegetative stage. It means we can plant earlier, but are we still going to see the benefits of weed suppression with that cover crop? Plus, if we let that cover crop grow with our soybeans for any length of time, are we going to see a impact on soybean growth? So we got some funding this year from the Delaware Soybean Board looking specifically at that. We had fall-seeded rye. We used a bushel of rye, drilled it in, put a little nitrogen on it in the fall. This spring, we planted our soybeans when the rye was either at the boot to flag leaf stage, so still relatively small rye, or we waited till the rye got to that heading stage and planted into it, all in 30-inch rows. We didn't roll it, we left everything standing. And then we came in and we killed the rye either the day that we planted, 2 weeks after we planted, or 3 weeks after planting. So we had different planting dates. And we've got, number one, we got a great stand of soybeans. I think going in and planting a little bit earlier, we certainly got the maximum emergence, maximum stand development from that. We've gotten excellent weed control. Our weed control was 2 applications. We applied Roundup and Enlist when we to terminate the cover crop, And then about 4 weeks later, we came in with Roundup and Liberty. And those were the only two herbicide applications that we made. And as you can see, we're getting excellent control. Now, we're going to continue with this. We're going to let that, once that soybean canopy starts to open up, are we going to find some weeds underneath there? That's something we're going to evaluate. But at this point, we've got a really nice stand. We had, you'll notice there's a little bit, of height differences out there. That's a combination of planting date and termination timing. But we don't think that, we'll see what that does yield-wise. But what I'm really excited about, we're down to 2 applications on no-till soybeans. Normally with our no-till soybeans where we don't have cover crop, we're looking at a minimum of 3 applications. An early burn down, control winter annuals, something at planting to put out our residuals, and then coming back with a post-emergent spray. Also, the number of active ingredients that we've applied is much less out in this scenario compared to what we normally have without cover crops. So stay tuned. We'll be talking about this at Ag Week after we have the yield data and a little bit more to share with you on that project. Another project we have with cover crops is we're one of about 6 or 7 different locations across the U.S. looking at cover crops and planting soybeans into it. And this one is looking at different levels of nitrogen from the previous year and its impact on rye and what impact that rye may have then on weed suppression. Does it differ? One of the things that we find here at the farm is when we plant rye after an irrigated corn crop, we get very poor growth out of our rye. There's just no nitrogen left. If we don't have a little bit of nitrogen, if we really want to look at rye and benefits of rye, we often need to put some nitrogen on there. Well, in the second study, we had a combination of no nitrogen on our rye, and then nitrogen. So we had different levels of rye. And even though the rye is smaller where we had no nitrogen, we're still getting a significant reduction in weed biomass as a result of it. So I think a lot of times we may look at a rye field in late March, early April. It might look a little thin. And a lot of times you hear the comment, well, it's not going to provide any weed suppression. Well, a lot of times we do get some benefits out of that. So we're continuing to look at that benefits of thinner rye stands in that particular trial. I'm going to move off of cover crops. Before I do, are there any questions or comments about some of the work we've done on cover crops? All right. This has been one of the most common weed problems I've been asked about over the last few years. Anybody know what weed I'm holding right here? Fall panicum. Man, that's good from that distance. Even at this, Jay, I had to kind of look at it and make sure I had the ligules knocked out. So yes, this is fall panicum. Fall panicum, it's an annual grass, and we are seeing it more and more up and down the shore in corn and soybeans. It's not a new weed. We've had it for years, but for one reason or another, we're seeing a lot more of it the last few years. Has a very small seed, germinates very close to the soil surface, and looks pretty wimpy when it first comes out of the ground. In fact, a lot of times it'll come up on the ground and it'll just basically fall over. Yet, unless we control it, it can get to be a pretty stout plant. And very difficult, if this stays green. Notice this isn't even heading yet, so it's going to start heading, so it heads late. That means when we come in with our corn and even early beans, it's still green. And these stems can be very difficult to get a combine through. So what can we do to help control it? Well, one of the things that we have found Um, First of all, dual and harness products are not very good on fall panicum. Side-by-side comparisons, they give us some good suppression for a few weeks, but they just don't give us full season control. Once it gets above 6, 7 inches tall, glyphosate or Roundup is not particularly good on it. It will start to miss it. So what we have found is consistently the pyroxsulfone products, being Zidua or the Anthem products, do a very nice job on fall panicum. And then earlier, that gets us good suppression and control for 4 to 5 weeks. Then when we come in with our post-emergent sprays, fall panicum is small, less than 3 inches tall, and we're getting excellent control. So where you're starting to see more problems with fall panicum, switching your pre-emergence herbicide to a pyroxsulfone product is going to be better than trying to rely on dual or harness to control it. There's a relatively new product in the marketplace from Syngenta called Storin. It has been commercially available for about 2 or 3 years. I just mention that because it has pyroxsulfone in it, but it's a low rate of pyroxsulfone. And we often see where it does not give us the same level of control as using a full rate of Zidua or full rate of Anthem Flex. So just be aware of that. In our trials over the last this particular year, we had a few new products that we had a chance to look at. Just to kind of mention that of what might be coming up. While this was our first year of having commercially available in the area the Liberty Ultra, which is a more concentrated formulation of the Liberty that many of us have been using for a number of years now. It's a more concentrated formulation. They were able to separate out the isomers. So isomer is a mirror image. The molecules have a mirror image of one another, and only one of those configuration is highly effective. So they were able to get rid of the less effective configuration and have only the L isomer. That's what it is. It's basic. It's the same active ingredient, but only the L isomer of the Liberty. It's available. We've looked at Rapidicil, which is a similar product to Sharpen. The last couple of years as part of a burn down. While it's a very fast-acting and very effective herbicide, it's not very good on mare's tail. One of the reasons a lot of us are using Sharpen is for mare's tail control, and it's not a particularly good mare's tail herbicide from what we have seen. There's a product from Helm called Reviton, very similar to Sharpen, but it doesn't have that mare's tail control like we really need. Sharpen, as I mentioned, BASF is coming out with a new premix of it. It's going to be Sharpen plus. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this product, but it's going to be called Veraxor in the marketplace. It's going to be 2 active ingredients, and it's just going to give a little bit broader spectrum than Sharpen by itself. We're still going to have the same limitations of having the interval between application of Sharpen or this Veraxor and when we can plant our soybeans. And with our coarse textured soils, that's going to be about 3 to 4 weeks. We've had a chance to look at diflufenican, which is going to be sold as Conventral from Bayer. It's going to be a corn and soybean herbicides. We've been talking for years. We need new modes of action to help broaden our spectrum. This is a new mode of action that's coming out. There was some hope that it was going to be a really good Palmer amaranth herbicide, and we're finding that it's not particularly, it's okay, but it's not really the level of control of Palmer amaranth that we need. Talked to a number of colleagues across the U.S. that have looked at it. It's not just a matter of our coarse textured soils. They're seeing that on heavier soils as well. So it'll be a new active ingredient, and it may help with Palmer amaranth, but it's not going to be the answer for our Palmer amaranth issues. Got word last week from the EPA that it looks like we may have Extend soybeans and be able to use the Extend dicamba formulations next year. It's open for comments right now. They're looking to be able to release the 3 products again, those being Extended Max, Ingenia, and Tavium for use on dicamba soybeans for over-the-top applications. The comment period ends in about 5 days, and so I suspect by Thanksgiving, the EPA will have a final announcement as to whether we'll have dicamba available for soybeans this coming year. Looks like it may have some additional restrictions if it comes. One is going to have a 250 or 240 foot buffer between application and sensitive plants. So we've got some new products that we had in our trials this year. You'll be hearing more about those in newsletters and some of the winter meetings this year. Next to the DSB study, we've got a study on soybeans where we're looking at pre-emergence herbicides and their relative safety to soybeans. This is a project that was funded last year by the Soybean Board, and we repeated it again this year. Looking at things like Dual and Zidua and Metribuzin, Valor and the Authority products, as well as Classic, and using them early spring, I know till soybeans, looking to see if we can see much difference between the products. What we saw this year, similar to last year, quite safe with most of the products that we had in the study, but the products that included chlorimiron, the active ingredient in Classic, we did see some stunting, some noticeable stunting in the plots again this year. We saw it last year. Last year, while we did have stunting, we did not impact yield. So we're taking that one to yield, so we'll see how that all shakes out. One of the things, though, which is encouraging, when I started a few years ago, always heard about Metribuzin and folks being concerned about Metribuzin use on soybeans because of crop safety concerns. We've looked at Metribuzin for about the last 5 years and have looked at some pretty high rates of Metribuzin, and we're just not seeing the injury that we may have had 25, 30 years ago. Whether it's the varieties are changing, whether it's we're now planting most of them in no-till, I suspect the big is that we now have much better application equipment. We don't have the overlaps that we once had. But when we're using Metribuzin on soybeans in the neighborhood 4 to 5 ounces as a pre-application, we're seeing little, if any, effect on soybeans. We've gone to much higher rates than that and still have not seen injury. So it gives us more comfort with our recommendations of bringing more Metribuzin back into our soybean programs to help combat Palmer amaranth problems. Plenty of time. All right. As you came in, you may have noticed over here we've got some shelters that we're looking at. They're behind the corn, so if you didn't see them before, you're not going to see them now. But we're looking at weed emergence. These are shelters that we've set up to elevate the temperature near the ground and at the soil level, and to see if there's as we're experiencing hotter and hotter summers, if we're going to see a change in weed emergence patterns as a result of that. So this is a multi-state study. We're one of about 5 or 6 locations where we're looking at Palmer amaranth, fall panicum, crabgrass, and morning glory emergence in the shelters as well as outside the shelters. We're monitoring soil temperature, soil moisture, and we're counting weeds about every 7 to 10 days. We started back in March, and we're going to continue to the end of the month. And when I say we, I'm actually looking at the guys down at the end because they're the ones that are doing the counting. They're better equipped for stepping into those shelters than I am at this point. All right. The last thing I wanted to talk about and spend some minutes talking to you was about some of the changes that we're going to start seeing on pesticide labeling. This is in accordance with the Endangered Species Act and some of the limitations on it. How many sprayed Liberty Ultra this year? Okay, got a few hands up, all right. And how many have their paperwork filled out for using Liberty Ultra? What paperwork? No one told me about this, right? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have outed you guys. I didn't think about that. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so no one's used it. Okay, no one's used it here in Delaware. But this is something that is going to be coming down, not just for herbicides, but all pesticides, that they need to conform with the Endangered Species Act. And how the labels are going to change is having precautions to reduce or eliminate drift and to reduce or eliminate runoff or erosion of pesticides into sensitive areas. And it's going to be phased in as new products get registered or as existing products go through re-registration. So it's going to be a slow process. It's going to take a number of years to get to that point. But there are products that are in the marketplace now that have these mitigations in place. So you definitely need to be aware of those. As I mentioned, the Liberty Ultras is one. The Enlist beans are another one. Now, the list came out before this was all finalized, so they don't have the requirement for keeping the paperwork, but it does say on there you need to have certain mitigations in order to use it. When any of the new products that I mentioned, the new product from Bayer, the new product from BASF, they're all going to have these precautions and statements on the label. So be aware of that. I'm going to be talking about that in much more detail at Ag Week this week, just to make people aware of it and how to best handle it. This is going to be a specific herbicide for a specific crop. Is going to have mitigations, and it's going to be applicable to the field that crop is grown in, not across your whole farm, but for that particular field. And just to give you a little bit of idea of what we're talking about, the Liberty Ultra, for instance, it requires a 10-foot buffer between the last spray pass and any sensitive vegetation. You can reduce that to 0 if you use a drift retarding agent that's in the spray tank. You can spray right up to the edge of the field, right up to a sensitive crop. Kind of the other extreme, I mentioned the dicamba products is going to have 240-foot buffer. So the buffers are going to change from product to product. The buffer is going to be downwind only. So while you may have it all scouted out, and if the wind's blowing from the north, you're fine. But if you pull up into the field and the wind's blowing from the east, you may have to reassess your spray drift pattern and making sure you have the right mitigations for it. For runoff and erosion, there's going to be a whole series of different ways of achieving mitigation points. So a herbicide will say how many mitigation points you have. Liberty Ultra, again, 3 mitigation points. Well, you can get up to 3 mitigation points if you plant no-till and use cover crop. You can get mitigation points if you've got a grassy strip adjacent to your field. You can get mitigation points if you're planting in a dryland field. You get mitigation points if you have irrigation and you irrigate shortly after application. And so there's a number of ways that you can get these mitigation points. For the runoff and erosion, a lot of these are things that are not going to change from year to year. Your soil type, your slope in your field, those sort of things are going to be standard, whether you have a grassy ditch alongside. So you can assess a lot of your fields well ahead of time and know how many points you have, and make sure that you have the right number or adequate number of points. The maximum number of points that you're going to need is 9 points. EPA has a website called EPA.gov, endangered species, and a lot of this information is there. They have what they call their drift and runoff calculator, which is very helpful to get you acquainted with what these mitigations look like, what they're going to look like, and how many points you get for the different mitigations. Excuse me. The nice thing about their website and this tool is if it describes a practice, you can click on it and it takes you to a separate website which gives you more information about exactly what they're referring to. So get familiar with the EPA endangered species website. It's going to be something that we're all going to have to start to deal with going forward. All right, that's about all I had, Corey. Are there any questions or comments anybody might have?
You seen an increase in barnyard grass?
Am I seeing an increase in barnyard grass? No, I'm not. No, I have not. Now, barnyard grass is one of the other names for barnyard grass is water grass. It's a problem in rice, so it does well underwater, or with water. And so, based on your question, with the rains that we had this spring, it might have helped spur that along. The other thing about barnyard grass is glyphosate in general is not very. I mentioned Johnson grass or glyphosate's not good on fall panicum. It's also not particularly good on barnyard grass. It's not good on goosegrass. Those are all 3 grasses that we have here that are really waxy. So those really waxy species, glyphosate can be a little weak on, and barnyard grass falls in that category. Any other questions, comments?